Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo, Kyle Evans here with you. Look, we're in a pretty good spot, I'd say, with our New York baseball teams for the most part here. Doorstep of the World Series, both teams in the championship series. Mets are through Game 3, down 2-1 to the Dodgers. Yankees up 2-0 heading into Game 3 today in Cleveland. In the grand scheme of it, Kyle, and we'll obviously get more into it here in a second, but in the grand scheme of it, it's pretty good on the surface having both these teams at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I still am, shocked to see that both teams are still going. And I know Mets fans might be a little down today, but what I would tell them is, look at all the times they faced adversity this year, have been down, but then responded the next day. I mean, they did it in Game 2 on the road. But I do think if they did lose tonight, they'd be in major trouble. But personally, I don't know. I think they'll bounce back, and I think the Yankees will continue to roll in Cleveland. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. Let's start the Mets element of things here. You mentioned, right, tonight's a pretty pivotal game, and in that game we got Yamamoto versus Quintana. It's interesting because, Yamamoto pitched Game 5 for the Dodgers in the NLDS in their series there, and it's kind of weird. Didn't think he looked particularly great by any means, right? But got the job done, frankly, for the Dodgers against the Padres in that situation. Quintana's he's looked pretty good all year. He's looked damn good so far in the playoffs. Pitching-wise, you got to feel confident. But I don't think it's so much pitching you got to worry about with the Mets in this case. And I know, look, I get it. The scoreboard yesterday, in this sense, like what you're talking about, lost 8-0. I didn't think the pitching looked exactly bad yesterday by any means, Kyle, this as the example, right? I mean, I know it's immediate, so it's easier to go back to it, but it's kind of been the hitting for the Mets so far, especially in this championship series, that I'm most concerned about with them, not the pitching, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can even go back to the Phillies series. There was a lot of spots at home that, they didn't. Ranger Suarez, that game. A lot of missed opportunities, still found a way to win. And then last night, they were in the game, I think maybe till like the 7th, maybe 8th. They just needed a big hit, and they never got one. They had the bases loaded a few times with one out against Walker Buehler and didn't get the job done. And it just seems like what I noticed last night, a lot of their guys are trying too much, trying too hard. Like Francisco Alvarez being one, Jose Iglesias. People got to understand that Francisco Lindor can't deliver every time. I know he struck out with the bases loaded when they had that one opportunity, but I mean, he can't deliver every time. You need other guys to help and chip in, and that's what they were doing up to this point, and that's how they got this far. And they just need to contribute more offensively and get the big hit.
Yeah, and I think with that point, we can kind of go a little bit back further here with the NLCS as it stands right now. I want to go to Game 1 first, obviously, in this sense. 9-0 loss, but I think the bulk of the conversation, at least with the Mets, didn't really involve the offense. They didn't really get anything going, but that's beside the point. It was an interesting decision, an interesting moment seeing Kodai Senga start the game, and It's an interesting spot given the fact that he obviously, because of injury, has not pitched much this year collectively. I don't know the thought process there. I guess it at that point, right? Like, they get done with the division series on Wednesday. You have 1, 2, 3, so it's 4 days off. So everybody is either on normal / extended rest. I just don't know why you don't go to, say, maybe the guy who pitched and won in Game 2, Manaea, on Sunday, for an example, right? I don't know. I think it set them off on the wrong foot, right? And now you kind of see a little bit of this. It turns tonight into, like you said, Kyle, I don't disagree, kind of like a must-win territory. But it kind of just feels like a back-and-forth thing that, if you're the Mets, to me, I don't know if you win that type of series anyway, right? Like, they've just been consistently good for so long. I don't know why they kind of derailed it, in a sense, starting Senga in Game 1.
Yeah, and I actually have the game logs pulled up here. So Manaea started October 8th, which was 5 days before Game 1 of the NLCS. So technically, he would have been on normal rest.
Yeah.
He's your guy. He's been your guy. He's been producing, and been a big reason why you're here. And you, like you said, you go with the guy who, is a great pitcher when healthy and can be good when he gets, some starts in, but he didn't get that. And then you're throwing him out on the road in LA in a huge game, and you could see his command wasn't there, his velocity was down. That is a dangerous lineup as it is, so you can understand a little bit. But yeah, it was lost early on, really. Because the pitching sets the tone, and when you go down big early like that on the road, and it's just tough for your offense to come back. And they did have opportunities to in that game a little bit, but only 3 hits. So yeah, it was a questionable decision, but people got to understand it's not all on Carlos Mendoza either. That was definitely also a front office discussion. It wasn't just Mendoza being like, hey, he's going to start. Like, no, there was a lot of talk about this, and they chose the guy, and it's probably going to come back and hurt them, honestly.
Yeah, it will be interesting to kind of see how, I guess, it plays out over the course of the next couple days, to be frank. I don't... It's just one of those things where I just view it as, and it's something we'll get into with the Yankees here in a few minutes, but like, I just view it as even in non-go or go home, go or go home games, I view the playoffs as there is no tomorrow no matter what. And the fact that, you just aren't kind of playing it it feels like they weren't playing it that way, essentially. And then it was just weird too. Like, this one to me is more on Mendoza, obviously, but like, your first guy of the bullpen at that point was Reed Garrett. Like, so you're burning one of your high leverage guys early on in that sense. I don't know. If I viewed it, and it's weird because I'm gonna contradict myself literally when we get to the Yankees and Cleveland series, but like, it just felt like, in that spot, I don't know if I would have gone with Garrett. I probably would have gone with probably a guy who could give you maybe a couple more innings and a little bit of length. But, a guy like Peterson probably was the better spot there. And we saw him in Game 2, obviously. But I don't know. I would have just gone with somebody who I think would have at least extended a couple more innings out and probably maybe have done even the same as Reed Garrett, in all honesty, at least trying to preserve whatever game you had still available to you super early on.
Yeah, and obviously, you'd sign up for a split. Taking a split in LA on the road to start the series, but the way it went down, you just feel like there could have been more. They could have potentially been in a better spot had they, picked the right starter. Maybe the offense, does something differently because, they're not falling behind so quickly. Obviously, that's hindsight, but I agree. I just think that was the tone setter, throwing Senga out there, and then, he didn't have it, and the rest of the game felt like it was lost early on.
Yeah. So for the rest of the series here at this point, that we can kind of go down, Game 4 tonight, 8:08. As we mentioned, Yamamoto, Katana. Tomorrow night, no matter what, there is a tomorrow night. Game 5, to be determined versus to be determined. Now, cyclically speaking, this would again be the spot that perceived would be Kodai Senga getting the start. It would also be Jack Flaherty again coming up for the Dodgers. I don't see the Mets. Frankly, I don't think the Mets start Senga again. I don't think you can start Senga again. I could be wrong, obviously, and I'll be eating my words. But like I think you give a guy, and it's just tough because, like I said, I think you have to play every game as if there is no tomorrow. If you want to keep everybody on normal rest as it stands right now and not go anybody early, I think you got to start like Peterson tomorrow.
Wow, that was spot on. I was going to say that.
Yeah, like so obviously you feel the same way. I just maybe Senga can be your first guy out of the pen and give you an inning, but I don't know how you could turn back to that after what you saw Sunday be your Game 5 starter in a potential, obviously, go or go home game.
Yeah, and I would even let Peterson get one time through the order. I mean, that's what he's been great at all year. He struggles when he goes deeper into games, but I mean, he's also been very reliable. He's been a huge reason they're here too. Mm-hmm. He's been consistent. He picked up the win in Philadelphia in that clincher. So, yeah, I would if there's two options, Senga or Peterson, I'm going Peterson all day.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even think about Senga's confidence too. Do you really trust him to go out there? He knows he just got nowhere in game one, and now he's in a big moment where, say the Mets do win tonight, it's 2-2 tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can't go down 3-2. I mean, I just think the pressure too is going to get in his head.
Yeah. And then really at that point, it not that it'd be anybody's guess, but say we do get to this Game 6 scenario out in LA on Sunday, who. Excuse me. Sorry. Who knows at that point? I'm guessing that would be Manaea for sure again at that point. And then you kind of cycle back through Manaea to Severino at that point, or maybe even depending upon maybe you short rest Katana at that point, depending upon how he would look today for a potential, hypothetical Game 7 on Monday. So all to do for the Mets. It's pretty interesting. They are going through, and it's a similar discussion point that I think we're going to end up having with the Yankees here. I think for the game tonight for them, they got to make some sort of adjustments offensively in the lineup. I don't know really where fully you can kind of go in a way. It's tough given the catching situation, admittedly, and I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if you can fully move off of Alvarez, right? But like, how many more times can you kind of give him some go? And I know I'm maybe singling one guy out here when it's a broader issue, but like, you have him in the 9 hole, for example, right? And that's a big spot in today's baseball, right? You flip the order there. You need to have good at bats. I think you got to make some sort of like a couple tweaks just to make sure that you're kind of using all your options and you're at least going down fighting more than anything else.
Yeah, and the thing about Alvarez is, you can understand a slump, but the quality of the at-bats aren't good either. I mean, he's constantly falling behind. Last night he strikes out 3 times, all looking. Mm-hmm. The first swing he had of the night, he threw it out against the screen. He lost his bat. Like he's gripping it too tight or not gripping it. So, yeah, I mean, I do think there possibly needs to be a change, but at the same time, they've been winning, and I know they've lost this game in Game 1, but you kind of just don't want to change it because Mendoza's rode with this lineup for so long, and they eventually bounce back when they do have rough times. Mm-hmm. And Luis Torrens, I mean, he'd be the option you'd bring in. Maybe he gives you just better bats, but I think you want Alvarez's defense.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And then I do agree there could be maybe a change at DH, though. Jesse Winker against Yamamoto tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
Over Martinez, who, had some rough swings, but did get on base a couple times. Mm-hmm. But overall, Jesse Winker's had some big hits as well. So, I mean, there is options, but Mendoza said last night that there won't be changes, and Alvarez will be his catcher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good for discussion, but in reality, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't know. frankly would be going with somebody else as it stands right now. Just a quick little note here. Looks like we're kind of dealing with a little bit of internet issues here, so we're still recording. Kyle, you're stuck on the screen as it stands right now, so hopefully we'll get that readjusted back out and everything here in due time. But let's move over at this point to the Yankees and discuss them. Obviously 2-0, can't ask, obviously, game-wise, series-wise, to get off to a better start, obviously, and things probably feel a little bit more on the chipper side, obviously, with them. So at face value, like we did with the Mets, we'll start here. Pretty good start, right? Obviously, we'll get into like what needs to be probably improved upon and everything like that, but at the face value side of it, can't ask for a better start to the series.
Yeah, I was not really worried. I thought the pitching matchups lined up well for the Yankees. Rodon looked really good, much better than his last start. And then the offense, hasn't been great, but it's done the job. And it's definitely, though, the pitching and then the bullpen that's carried them for, the last few games.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second as well. But yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, Rodon and Garrett Cole, Cole probably to maybe a lesser extent.
Yeah, ugly late.
But they got through the first 3 innings, obviously, pretty well. Things got sideways for Cole from the 4th inning to the, 5th inning, 1/3. But, it's just one of those things where, the Yankees have just been able to kind of, at least, as I call it, keep the Guardians at arm's distance throughout this whole series for the most part and keep them at bay. And the pitching for them has, like you said, Kyle, for pretty much been the carrying storyline for how well the Yankees have looked in these first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, off air a little bit. Clay Holmes has been unreal. I'm one of them that was complaining about him. It just seems like he has less pressure, even though it is a high leverage spot in the postseason. But he's pitching better, his sinker's better. And then Tommy Kahnle's Tommy Kahnle, he does his job. And then Luke Weaver, man, what a story he's been. I'll admit it, in the offseason I wasn't happy when they re-signed him. At that point he was a starting pitcher. So I thought he was just a depth piece, and they gave him a lot of money. But in my mind, they gave him a lot of money. So I'm just happy with, how it's gone. And we knew all along that if the Yankees were going to get to where they wanted to go, they needed to have a closer. And if Clay Holmes was still in there right now, I don't think they'd be where they are, because you just didn't have it.
Yeah.
And I do think they should have maybe even made the move earlier. The bullpen's been terrific, and it's nice to see.
It's, pretty crazy, because I remember sitting, obviously in this case I'm up at the desk today, but down in the chair, and I was just like, I guess Luke Weaver might be this swing guy that they're going to give the opportunity to and see what happens. And worst case scenario, right, you DFA and you eat $1.5 million. And I mean, he's been the revelation project again for the Yankees this year. It's kind of crazy. He, man, it's one of those things where it makes you feel good, kind of seeing him succeed, because I mean, I know you have, Kyle, but like if other people haven't, this dude is a social media internet darling, in the sense of like you don't know what he's gonna say, and he leans into that. He leans into the character, and it's great. It's one of those, like, as I call it with a lot of these guys on this team, it's not like your dad's Yankees by any means, or granddad's Yankees by any means. It's a different team in that sense. I don't mean to disparage him this way, right? But you wouldn't be seeing Mariano do the Luke Weaver stuff by any means. Nor is Luke Weaver Mariano. I'm not trying to make that comparison. Let's get into some of the more negatives, I guess, with the Yankees as it stands right now. More than likely, and I'm going to say more than likely because until the lineup comes out here in what really should probably be short order, because they are the early game today with the 2 games going on, Kyle. Rumor, allegedly, more than likely, we're going to see some tweaks to the lineup today for the Yankees. Looking like Stanton moving up a slot in the order. Looks like potentially Austin Wells out of the lineup entirely. He's certainly been struggling, but he's not the only one struggling, right? I mean, Jazz Chisholm looks frankly lost at the plate most at bats right now, and it's like one call doesn't go his way, appears to kind of tank the at bat for him. And this is the wrong time of year to kind of be going through some of this stuff for any team. It's one of those things where I frankly do hope we see these changes coming to the lineup officially come through here when we get the lineup coming out here in just a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really like the idea of Austin Wells totally getting removed from the lineup. I would have preferred him just to get dropped down. Jose Trevino's defense has been horrible, as we know. Cleveland can run, so you do get a little worried about that. I mean, Jose Ramirez stole off Garrett Cole the other night. But yeah, Wells is, man, really, really bad, even back to the middle of September. Yeah. So I guess you have to, and you're up 2-0, so I guess you take that risk as well. And then, yeah, Jazz has not done much. That one home run against Kansas City.
I just realized, it's not to interrupt, could also the fact that it's Boyd pitching a lefty for Cleveland starting anyway be playing into that a little bit, now that I'm thinking about that out loud?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Wells has hit lefties a little bit, but it's obviously a tougher matchup for him. So, I mean, maybe that's the case. Maybe they do bring in Wells, when Boyd gets taken out, not far, into the game. Because even when Boyd's been starting, I don't think he's gone very deep in a while.
I don't think he got to the fifth inning in the DS series.
But yeah, so Stanton probably clean up tonight. I do like that. I thought maybe Rizzo was an option, but there's a lefty on the mound starting, so you understand that. So yeah, I do. I guess I'll be fine with the lineup changes. I just care about winning. If that's what's going to take to win, then win.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, and that's the thing with it, more or less, right? Is I don't necessarily like doing stuff like this time of year, but at the same token, like I said with the Mets, you have to play like there is no tomorrow. If that means you got to tweak something, you got to tweak something, right? You can't get into this lull of thinking everything is fine when it's not fine. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we didn't see a swap of Stanton anyway earlier. As it stands right now, he's had one of, if not the hottest bat in the Yankee lineup, to be quite frank, through the playoffs. Glaber's certainly done his job at the top of the order, and it's kind of after that a little bit, right, with not as much Soto, but obviously Judge, and then Wells. You kind of get guys filing in after that. We mentioned Jazz. Honestly, Rizzo being active for this ALCS series, he's looked pretty good at the dish, all things considered. I was on here last week, I know, talking about how I was concerned about how it was going to go, and he's looked pretty much fine for the most part. It's hard to really outright complain given the fact he hasn't, frankly, seen at least live action pitching like this, obviously, in a couple weeks and anything like that, and I'm imagining he's probably still not necessarily 100%, right, Kyle? I mean, I'm imagining it's probably still a little bit painful to be gripping a bat with a couple broken fingers.
Yeah, but he's 3 for 7, has 3 hits, 2 games, one being a double. It was scored. Volpe scored, but it was scored as an error.
Right.
But still, helped bring him home. Yeah, I've been impressed. His defense. He had that one ball go off his glove the other night that did allow a run against Tim Hill. Mm-hmm. But other than that, yeah, for him not seeing live pitching and for him not really doing much, he's been good. And like I said, I possibly would have moved him up. Maybe I still would tomorrow, against a right-hander, even though the Guardians haven't named their starter. I would assume it's a right-hander. But, yeah, and then Anthony Volpe, we didn't really talk about him, but he's quietly been actually pretty solid.
Yeah.
He's hitting .278, getting on base a little bit. It looks like his approach is different, which is good. He's not trying to hit the home run or, his swing's just relaxed, more easy, and that's what it needed to be. So hopefully he can carry that over and continue to get on base.
Yeah, I don't know who hypothetically it would be for Cleveland tomorrow because cyclically speaking, it probably would have been Alex Cobb, but with him being hurt and being off the roster now, it kind of takes him off the dish.
So a lot of mixing and matching probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ben Lively, they used out the bullpen, Tuesday. So I don't know if he would. I mean, maybe he would start, but he obviously probably wouldn't be going deep by any means. But that would also be a righty. I mean, at this point for the Guardians, because Boyd's going tonight, I'm pretty sure the only people they really got left in the tank would be righties in terms of starting. So maybe that is the case. Maybe we do see Rizzo move up one spot or something like that again in the lineup tomorrow.
Yeah, and they're lucky, they had an off day yesterday because, say, Boyd doesn't make it deep. I mean, their bullpen's coming in early, and then tomorrow, if you're bullpenning it, puts them in a bad spot. So
Yeah.
I think this is huge. If you're a Guardians fan today, you need Boyd to be productive and give you length.
Yeah, and for the Yankees, look, baseball's all about taking advantage of what's presented in front of you. You mentioned the bullpen. That's kind of been one of the big things that Cleveland, going into the series, I was worried about facing them, but kind of been, I don't want to say an outright non-factor. That's not fair to the guys who have gone out and actually have produced really well for them. But game one's a really perfect example. Again, like I said, this will contradict a little bit what I said in regards to the Mets in game one, but I got completely thrown off when Cantello was brought in instead of like Tim Herron in that situation. I'm just calling it like it is, right? Like, at least at that point, it was still a 1-0 game, right? Or was it 2-0 at that point? Either way, like you have he's part of this four horsemen thing you have out in the bullpen. Like it just kind of baffled me, and I think the Yankees obviously took advantage because Cantello couldn't hit freaking anywhere in the zone pretty much. And it's just one of those things where for, the Yankees, I think they got to be pretty thrilled with the fact that they haven't seen Clase or, any of these other guys when it actually has mattered in that sense, right? Because, frankly, when those guys are rolling, it's frightening to face. I mean, that's one of the things about this style of postseason ball that we've seen evolve now over the course of the past 10, 15 years that, when we talk about these pitchers, right, these starters only need to go one time through the order. Like, this is what we're talking about. When you have guys like that, like, you don't need to worry about your starter having to go until, like, at least the 6th inning in the postseason because you have these guys that you can turn to and not have to worry about in that sense if you're that team.
Yeah, and Cleveland, I'm sure, if Shane Bieber was healthy, it would have helped them so much more.
Yeah.
Would have pushed everyone back a day. But unfortunately, their starting pitching that was kind of my concern for them. Their bullpen was good. Their offense did enough for the most part all season. Had a couple, shrieks where they stopped hitting. But, yeah, I think it was the starting pitching all along, and it might hurt them because the bullpen, I think the next 48 hours is going to be used a ton.
Yeah, it's been, for the Guardians, it's been a really weird year starting pitching-wise. I mean, you mentioned Bieber. Tristan McKenzie took a huge step back. Same with Logan Allen. Guys who they were, frankly, going into the year, right, relying on and kind of banking on being, more or less kind of being, being in a spot like this where we aren't wondering, like, what the hell the plan is going to be for tomorrow for them. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised now that I'm kind of looking at the roster for Cleveland. I mean, Gavin Williams, probably, now that I'm thinking out loud about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably him first and then everybody else falling in afterwards. I mean, nobody outside of, because, like, they're not going to move Bobby up for him early because he's coming off of an injury. And at that point, right, you aren't starting Boyd back-to-back days by any stretch. So, I mean, I'm guessing it's going to be Gavin Williams probably in Game 4 tomorrow on Friday for the Guardians.
Yeah, just looking quickly, Matthew Boyd, 2 postseason starts, just 6.2 innings combined. So that shows you right there, he's not going to give you maybe 3 innings, maybe into the 4th. But yeah, like I said, they're in trouble with their bullpen. They better hope their bullpen's very good the next 48 hours.
Yep. And much like the Dodgers, this is a team that no matter what, the Yankees can't be taking lightly, even though in this case they're up 2-0. Yep. This is a team that we've seen all year. When one part of them is down, usually another part steps up, and as I call it, baseball is baseballing to a degree here, but like somehow, some way, the other part hasn't stepped up. Obviously, in this case, the offense to help back up the pitching when they need them most. Probably going to change, right? Baseball has a way of acting that way. So, again, someone we kind of talked a little bit off air about, Kyle. Like, I don't expect the Yankees to sweep by any means, but boy, would it be great tonight as viewers to know to go in to tomorrow knowing that you have a 3-0 lead and you don't have to necessarily worry outright maybe about. I mean, obviously, like I said, you want to win every freaking game in the postseason. But you have that extra little breathing space should you need it that, if something were to go awry, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and then Luis Seal won't be a head case. Maybe he won't walk. Maybe he won't walk 5 batters. Maybe he'll just, throw it over the plate, because he has the stuff. But, yeah, I mean, going up 3-0 would be huge. And you just hope Clark Schmidt can, deliver on on the road against still a very good team. Clark hasn't had a lot of postseason experience, but you just hope he shows up today. Because if the Guardians get one, suddenly they get some momentum, and then tomorrow again they're home, and it's like whoa, like don't let them get 2 in a row. Because then 2-2 and it's totally different. So yeah, far from over, but they're in a good spot.
Yep. So I think on that note, Kyle, it's a nice reminder as we wrap up that the next time we're talking, we're going to be at World Series time. And hopefully we at least get one of these New York teams across the finish line so that way we can keep the podcast going even a couple more weeks just yet.
Yeah, and then if both were to make it, that was the dream all along. I mean, look at the logos here.
Exactly. About to say, because I'm at the desk today, I mean, can kind of, the camera, there we go. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm like a weatherman right now doing this for the visual audience anyway. The audio audience could give two flying what's because we're just talking to the mics for them. So, but at least they visually see the logo anyway. So hey, Subway Series would be great. That's what we're hoping for. We'll get out here on that note, Kyle. Been a really awesome week of baseball. Should continue through the weekend. So enjoy, everybody. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening, no matter where you are from. And doing that, like I said, when we're back here next week talking World Series time, and can't wait. Hopefully, like I said, we got one team for sure across the finish line so we can continue this thing out for a couple more weeks, no matter what yet. Appreciate, like I said, like, share, and subscribe. Catch us on the major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Amazon Music. We'll talk again next Thursday, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the weekend once the video goes. There we go.